the run. We were told that there's no scandal here. Just move on, whether it's Benghazi, Fast and Furious, the whole line. I mean, this is what this government has been telling us for this last 6.5 years. And Carl, you know my passion and yours as well. And this is why we're so aligned intrinsically and philosophically. And that is that we have to call it for what it is. And we've been lied to for a long time. And unfortunately, too many have bought into that lie. And we've got to get out of this rut. This is what has us on the wrong track, is we've exchanged the truth for a lie. And I say, how's that working for you?
Yeah, well, listen, thank you for saying that. In fact, you just used a biblical phrase right out of Romans chapter 1, exchanging the truth for a lie. And out of 2 Thessalonians, throwing the truth to the ground, out of the book of Daniel. I mean, we're living in those times prophetically where it's a cultural thing. It's a world culture thing. It's not just specific to the United States, but most of us listening today and talking here, we live in the United States. We're seeing that philosophy sweep our nation as well, where as long as the government and the media proclaim it, then it's truth, and so many people swallow it. So again, this is why your program is so vitally important to America. And
Carl, and thank you for your new book, Final Warning. Speaking of understanding the times, and I've always said that we had to get synced up with what God is doing. And therein lies the opportunity, is that we would be in alignment with what, the Holy Trinity is doing here. Jesus said there's obvious signs and wonders. We understand. We look up at the sky. We see when the storm is coming. But we also can fall short and misunderstand exactly what's going on. And this is why I believe you, and maybe incorrectly, assuming that I know your motivation here, although I'm sure that when God said, hey, look, I want you to write this book, you're going, why me? And why on this strategic topic has there not been enough books written about Revelation and about the final warning? But obviously there was something else that was revealed to you that motivated you to say, okay, I've got to do this.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you. No, you're absolutely right. This is not, I've been in the ministry for 30 years. I was a cop for 10 years prior to that. I look at things through an investigative mind. I examine and weigh out facts and evidence, and discard the bad and keep the good until we get the case solved. And I've approached scriptures that way. I do have formal theological education and training. I serve on the Board of Regents of a major university. I have master's level work and beyond in theology. So I said all that to say, well, I've been a pastor in one church for 28 years, so I'm not an alarmist. I'm not a date setter. I'm not a sensationalist. I've done a slow 25 years of study has gone into the producing of this book, 25 years of research. And I present it, I think, very journalistically and balanced. I don't try to cram it down anybody's throat, but I just say, look, here are things going on in the world. Here are some things that were said in the scriptures 2,000 years ago. Here are some key words that are in the scriptures that line up specifically with things that are happening in our lifetime and only our lifetime. Could it be that we're living in very, very prophetic days? And, of course, the focus of my book is to zoom in on the trumpet prophecies, the 7 trumpets of Revelation, and to look at some of those key words and to zoom in on those. But first I build a theological foundation for it in the book.
Exactly.
So, thanks for your words. People that are reading it and reviewing it are really liking it thus far.
Oh, absolutely. I could not put the book down myself, Carl. And this is a great, as you say, it's not that you're cramming it down anybody's throat. You present it, here are the facts. It's up to you to connect the dots, and, what your individual takeaway, that's up to you. But, the evidence is pretty clear here as to what's going on, because that's what's happening. Carl, you're a pastor, you're there in church, and people, see the news, and they're seeing a Jordanian pilot getting lit up, people heads coming off, and seeing all this evil running rampant in the Middle East. It's even coming here domestically, though the media wants to kind of, squash the reporting of it. All this stuff is happening around, and people are coming into the churches and going, what is happening to our world? Is this something that God warned us about?
Yeah. Well, no, you're absolutely right. That's exactly what people are saying, which was my motivation for writing this book, to help people see some specific things that I think that I see. But I do end the book by saying, look, even if you disagree with these specific things I've pointed out, let's not forget the prophetic days in which we're living. Israel is back in the land, the 2,500-year-old prophecy fulfilled. We're the only generation in the history of the world to see that happen. The nations of Ezekiel 38 that are very clearly outlined there that would align themselves against a returned Israel in the, quote, last days. Well, we have the returned Israel now. And those alignment of nations are happening specifically by name right now. The rise of Islam, what's happening in the Middle East, it's all prophesied in the Word of God. So regardless of what people might think about some of the conclusions I've arrived at in my book, focusing on the trumpets, the bottom line is we're living in extremely prophetic times.
We're going to talk more about the trumpets in just a moment. Stay with us, America, on Bill Martinez Live. Well, good. Final warning. We're talking about Carl's latest book. For those of you that are questioning global events and going, okay, what does this have to do? What is the Bible saying about this? In this book, Carl particularly focuses in on understanding the trumpet days of Revelation. Break that down for our audience. We're going to have to go through this fairly quick, Carl, because we got about, maybe about 7 minutes or so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate it. Well, listen, there are quite a few eschatological schematics and ways of interpreting end times and Revelation in the book of Daniel. And I know that some people are very heated and very stalwart in their stance. And what I try to do is just to say, look, folks, there's some scriptures here that are astoundingly connected to actually recorded historical events. My book is filled with resources that are just impeccable, scientific resources, journalistic resources, mainstream media resources, language department, language study resources, experts out of the Middle East, making these word connections and these historical event connections to things that are in prophecy. So I focus in on the trumpet visions and give some meaning to them and show people that, look, here's the information. This is either the biggest collection of massive coincidences in the world, or we are living in a time when prophecy is being unfolded right before our eyes. I leave it up to the reader to make that final judgment, but I present not only the information, but the biblical facts, the contextual commentary facts, as well as the resourced historical facts, and people can look at them. So it's a sweeping overview of where we might be in biblical history right now and in prophetic history.
And Carl, let me frame this, because you mentioned some people can be rather dogmatic about prophecy. The Bible is good to warn us that we know in part and we prophesy in part, because it's like, even with your book, it's a snapshot of the events of past. You can look forward and maybe put some trajectory to it, but we need to understand that we are not the author and finishers of our faith. It is God himself, to the point who Jesus said, hey, look, I don't even know the date. The Father hasn't shown me that. But he says, keep looking and be vigilant. And what we see is like that onion skin experience. As time goes by, another layer is revealed to us, and that opens up the realm of added prophecy. As you say, you've been on this journey for 25, 30 years, and I've been right alongside you, and right about the time you think you've got it nailed down, the layer peels back and you go, how could I have thought that?
Exactly. You're exactly right. You're always tweaking and always adjusting. A good, honest theologian will do that. But I will say this in the little bit of time we have left. I tell people, I begin with what Jesus said about end times, and I build my theology from there. Now, I know people say, well, that's just your interpretation. Well, no, it's very clear. In Luke chapter 17, talking about the last days, Jesus said those days and the coming of the Son of Man will be just like it was in the days of Noah and the days of Lot. He said it will be just like this. Now, those are Jesus' words, Bill. And if we'll think about it, he said the days of Noah, people were eating and drinking and giving in marriage right up to the day the flood came. So the world was so wicked, it was so filled with violence and hatred and wicked, that God destroyed every living, breathing thing except for those that were his people. But think of it, the rest of the world was eating and drinking and giving in marriage up until the day God destroyed it. In other words, they were so immersed in their wickedness, they didn't even see the coming of the Lord right before their eyes. They didn't even see it.
Right.
Same thing with Lot. In Lot's days, the people living in Sodom and Gomorrah did not see the destruction that was coming. They were so immersed in the wickedness and particularly the sexual perversion of their day. And so the bottom line is Jesus said it will be just like this. Well, Bill, we're living in those days.
Right.
We're living in this.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, we're so used to this evil. We've seared our conscience to such a degree that so many think that God is irrelevant, God is not coming, God will not judge, and that's exactly what they thought at the same time, didn't they, Carl?
Exactly. And the spirit of Noah's day is sweeping our world. The spirit of Sodom and Gomorrah is sweeping the world, not just America's culture. We're exporting it all over the world. And so we're there. And now we have the ability to instantaneously communicate with each other and translate languages through the internet instantaneously. The Tower of Babel has been rebuilt, and we're eating and drinking, and we're giving in marriage, even in man and woman marriage, and thinking nothing of it. And the spirit of Noah and Sodom sweeps the world, and Jesus said, hey, you'll know you're in the end times when this happens. It'll be just like that. And so what happened in Noah's day? He and his family were living in the midst of great tribulation. But God raptured them out before he poured out his wrath. He took them up and above his wrath, the flood, in the ark. The same thing in Lot's days. They were living in the midst of wickedness and great tribulation, yet before God poured out hailfire and brimstone and destroyed it all, he sent his angels to take them out. And Jesus said it'd be just like this.
And when that starts happening, it's not a time to look back. It's a time to move forward and run to the arms of a loving Father that says, come to me.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Bill.
Well, Carl Gallups, Carl, thank you for the book. I know that this was not necessarily an easy book to write, although, I know you trusted in the Spirit, and the Spirit wrote many of these pages, and it probably flowed, but I can appreciate that, like you said, this is 28 years and a lifetime, and lots went into Final Warning. Congratulations on the book. Carl Gallups has been our guest. Carl, thank you so much. It'll be linked on our website at BillMartinezLive.com.